Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I am so excited today. We not only have a longtime friend, this is a human that's in the fitness and wellness world, and our entrepreneurial journeys kind of started or progressed, I should say, in the wellness space around the same time. So I want to welcome Lin Hill to the mic. She is the founder of Synergistic Movement, where she highlights mobility, stability, and synergy. I'm going to let her tell her story about who she is, what she's doing, and her amazing company and how she's facilitating health and wellness in our community. So without further ado, Lin, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
Thanks for having me, Kay. It's great to be here.
Yes. Usually I see Lin, well, it's been many years, but I'm like face down on a mat and she's like stretching me, and people always think fascial stretching. It's amazing. But it sounds like you're going to like a spa where you chill, but athletic recovery is no joke.
Yeah, no joke at all. It's not as relaxing as a spa, but you can go afterwards.
Yeah. My mom, I'm like, oh, I'm heading over to like the recovery center, or whatever. My mom would be like, oh, enjoy and whatever. And I'm like, Mom, it's like scraping and stretching, and it's not like I need a break from it. So, but it's amazing thing. So Lin and I met at Denver Sports Recovery, and I started as an athlete there, and that was one of my first clients for KOALLIANCE. And it was a phenomenal starting point because I got to meet so many incredible people like Lin, and so many of us that were super passionate about health and wellness and kind of building our own businesses. So Lin, give us a little bit about your background. We actually have a lot in common. We're both former D1 athletes, obviously into health and wellness and sports. I don't know if you're still competing or playing rugby, which you were playing, right?
Yeah, we took a big hiatus because of the pandemic, obviously, but we are just starting to get back into some like touch and practice, and we'll have a season in the fall, it sounds like.
Okay. And you guys need to watch the video because Lin is not a huge human. But she's mighty in her force and her presence, but rugby's no joke. And I know some of the humans that you play with, they're not small humans. So
no, I'm definitely on the smaller side of the rugby humans, but it doesn't, as long as you've got good technique, you can hang with them.
There you go.
But my job is to really pass it and make other people run into people.
And that's what you do in life. You kind of like facilitate wellness and get you getting ready to go. And in your business, you have to work with large humans. So you guys have to be like strong and know how to be able to like move a 300-pound leg of like an NFL lineman. Like, I mean, you guys really do. You work with a lot of big people.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is actually well thought out with fascial stretch therapy itself. It was created by Kristen Ann Frederick, and if you've ever seen Anne, she's also a tiny human and specializes in working on large linebackers. So the therapy itself was actually designed to use their body weight and take less off of the practitioner themselves. So it really increases the longevity of the fascial stretch practitioners while also still giving them a very good stretch. So but it is a workout.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you guys have to take care of yourselves just the same, like your joints and your hands in it, because I mean it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's definitely better on the body than say massage therapists. I've got a lot of respect for them. It's very hard on the body, but it's really about using your own body weight to move other people's body weight.
I love it. Well, before we dig into that, give us your background on Turmeric and Tequila. As the audience knows, I really like to highlight what I call my varsity humans questioning a better way. Your journey is pretty remarkable, and you're also still pretty young and doing, big major adulting moves, which we never grow out of. I don't think. I just turned 40 this past year, and it's still like I'm still figuring out some of this adulting side of things.
I love that though.
Yeah, well, I hope that journey never ends, but it's impressive what you've done so far. So give us a little bit about like young Lin, your background, and where you're coming in at, just so people have frame of reference of how awesome of a human you really are.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so let's see. If we're going to start right from the beginning, I was born in China. I was adopted when I was 4. So I was in orphanage for the first 4 years, and my mom was a single mom who was a badass. She adopted me when I was 4, moved to Denver. So I kind of grew up here with a very strong, independent woman as my the person I looked up to. So she, I think, really shaped. I definitely didn't realize as much as a kid, but I think she really showed that that the mold isn't a male and a female, and the male makes all of the money and does all of the strong things, and the woman just stays at home. All I ever knew was this independent woman who raised 2 kids on her own and was a teacher. So so I grew up and yeah, she was badass. I grew up playing a lot of sports, so sports definitely have played a huge role in my life. I was always a soccer player. I was a diver for a little bit and throughout high school, and then as you mentioned, I was a D1 rower in college. So that was played a big impact in and just suffering, and it was hard, and being a student athlete's hard, as anyone who's been a student athlete knows. And then it is a full-time job, really. So I kind of shifted my degree career a little bit with that, because I was actually initially in school for athletic training, because I thought that was such a critical part to being a competitive athlete. And as we all know, that's also a full-time job, so I wasn't able to do that. So I had to pick between the two. Picked rowing, kind of went for more of a general exercise sports science degree. Found DSR right out of college, and kind of was introduced to this whole new world of wellness. And that's where I met people who did fascial stretch therapy, who really encouraged me to do that. And that took me to the LOX method, and then that took me to muscle activation techniques. And then that kind of just gave me the tools to run my own business, where I was able to kind of do what I want and see the clientele that I want, and really kind of choose my own path, which then eventually led me to acupuncture school. And so I'm currently in acupuncture school, working on getting a master's in acupuncture and master's in Oriental Medicine. So very busy these days.
Okay. Well, but I love the medicine side, man. We'll have to do maybe a whole other podcast about that, because obviously turmeric and tequila, I think as much as you can control in your world and what you're doing, here comes my dogs. It's critical to kind of have the balance of all things. Like, you can do all the stretching or whatever you want, but if you're overtraining or you're eating crap, like, it's such a whole human approach. And even when you know stuff about like herbs or medicines, or, you know, what corners to cut, it's still hard to navigate like the supplement industry, and it's hard to know even when you already have a background in it. So I love when practitioners like you have like this really well-rehearsed background, where it can be like, okay, do dry needling and cut out dairy for the month or whatever. Because you really need all those angles to get to like your optimal self.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of why I was seeking it, because I felt like I really have a lot of like neuromuscular background, and I can deal with like the more of the physical ailments, but that's just usually a result of so many other things in your life. And I didn't feel like I had the tools to address the other things in your life. And so that really took me down that path, where I feel like I can give it a well-rounded approach to wellness.
I love it. How did you initially come across DSR? Because they were just starting, and like that was a pretty forward thought process even for them, of like, oh my God, this recovery center, like our athlete's going to pay for this. And we like lived there. We were competitive crossovers at the time.
You really did live there.
Like we were beat to crap, and you guys saw us like at our worst. And when I mean worst, it was
your best.
Yeah, and our best, yes. But I mean, we'd come in like crabby or fighting, or because we were so tired from training, or we were starving right before we got home to eat. So but it was really cool. It was attracting such amazing humans, and it was such a forward thing. It was funny that it was like right where we were, but I think a lot of us, it was such an amazing starting point, and it was cool to see everybody kind of branch off and do like their own business. When you got all those certifications and whatnot, did you know immediately like, okay, I know I'm going to do this on my own, like this is a fit, and then I'm eventually going to want to be an entrepreneur?
Oh no, definitely not at all. So I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So to go back to your question about how I found DSR, I actually, a family friend of mine used to get stretched by Casey McNeil. And at that time, Casey and Andrea Beaver, formerly Hassler, but the time those two were just talking about getting DSR started. So they had just got the blueprints of it. They had just bought their first pair of Normatec boots, and they were in this like tiny like closet, basically, just stretching people in there. And that was probably maybe a year before I graduated. And so they were just about to open it, and I think they opened in like maybe August of 2014, and I found them. I circled back around to them around October. So they were pretty fresh, and I just started on the floor, just like setting up people's on stim and cleaning tables and taking the trash out. And then Casey McNeil is actually the one that encouraged me to seek out fascial stretch. And I was like, oh yeah, I think that'd be awesome to do one-on-one stuff. And I just kind of kept getting these opportunities to get certified. And then the opportunity to run my own business kind of fell into my lap as well. Matt Lloyd, he is an owner over at Mountain Strong, CrossFit and climbing. They were like, oh, we're going to gut out the office and wrenched out somebody. Do you know anybody that would want to rent the space? And I was like, well, I guess I kind of would. And then a month later, I made a website and started my own business. So it all kind of fell into my lap.
Well, I think when you show up, you are a good person, you have good energy, and you're intentional in life. Like we can show up and do as many things as we want, as we can, the correct way with air quotes. But really, just like you said, like you happen to run a DSR, kind of like I did. Then, Matt, who's also a rad dude, has this opportunity. Like I think if you're just continuously showing up and you are a good person, like those things, the path will reveal itself.
Totally.
Even though we try to be, type A and we're gonna plan it, here's how it's gonna be done. Usually universe is like, okay. And here's
We
how
had
it
different plan.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So, and I got to catch up with it. I know Mountain Strong is an incredible facility and everything they have going on. But tell us a little bit about what fascial stretching is and why it's important for everyone. I think being an athlete, we're privy to so many like trend setting, like forward thinking, human optimization type stuff. But really, I've loved seeing some of these things go mainstream because everybody needs it. And us taking charge of our health and wellness is so critical, especially when you see what healthcare costs and blah, blah, blah. But tell us a little bit about it and why it's a good thing for anyone.
Yeah, it is an awesome thing. So fascial stretch therapy is a little bit different than traditional stretching because we're working with the fascial network versus individual muscles. So a lot of the time when you're told to stretch, you're like, go stretch your hamstring, and you just stretch your hamstring. But you can actually get a lot more done with less when you attack more of the fascial network. So the fascial network is connective tissue that connects your entire body, muscles from top to bottom. I like to kind of use the analogy of like a sausage. So the meat inside are your individual muscles, and that plastic casing is your fascia. So it connects and gives structure to the whole body. So fascial stretch therapy uses that network to give you a really deep stretch. The biggest thing that it also adds in is traction. So it's kind of creating that little bit of space within the joint capsule that allows you to just get more space in the body, which we always need because we're a very compressive society. We're always sitting, standing, whatever that may be, and we're creating compression in the joints. So that gives us a space within the joint, and that also allows us to get a bit of a deeper stretch that's a little bit more comfortable because we're getting actual space rather than just creating more compression. So it's super awesome. It can be helpful from head to toe. There's a stretch for everything, and you get off the table feeling a couple inches taller.
Yeah, we used to do them. I think it's been a minute since I've been good about all full body care. We're getting back into it slowly because I'm getting back into CrossFit-ish. Not competing, but just lifestyle type stuff.
Okay.
And it's so amazing. And it's for your body, but man, just to let your mind rest and like, move some blood. It's so good for your mind. I remember always walking out of there just feeling so good. And I've sent many people, athletes, but like people that have had car accidents or people that are just tight in general. Like my forearms my fascia is just really super tight, particularly my arms for some reason. But anyway, like if you don't get it, I always just tell people, I'm like, go try it once. And once you do it one time, you'll be hooked.
Yeah, a lot of things I do, I feel like it's hard in theory to understand, but once you're on the table, you're like, oh, I need this.
Yeah. Well, so tell me how the business has kind of grown, because it is forward thinking, and it's amazing that you're in a gym and you're in a studio, you're amongst people that kind of get it and they'll spend to take care of their bodies. But how has it been like kind of educating the community around you about what you're doing?
It's been great. It's great. I think it's interesting because I get a lot of people that are actually in the medical industry themselves. So whether they're doctors, nurses, they're very strictly Western, and it's interesting to be able to help educate them as well. And that's the demographic that I'm always shocked about. They're like, oh wow, this is really cool. I want to learn more about it, because initially I'm like, well, I figured that this is something you'd already know. But it's been really awesome. It's a great impact. I really like to educate clients, because I'm not one that's like, you need to come back twice a week for the next 6 months because it's the only way you're going to get better. I really love to put the onus on the clients and give them the tools that they need to maintain their own care and their own wellness, because I think that's the only way you're going to be successful. Like, you can come see me for an hour one day and this week, but you got so many other hours where you're moving and functioning on your own. You need to be able to have the tools and the techniques to help yourself, and then I can just kind of give you the extra push that you need when you're feeling a little bit more stuck or you're not really sure where to start. So it's really, I feel like I hope it's empowering for my clients to be able to take on their wellness a little bit more and spark their interest in taking care of themselves more.
I love that. I think that's a really important approach because at the end of the day, it is your business, it's your livelihood. However, you don't need to, coerce clients or whatever
Mhm.
to coming all the time saying, well, you need to do it twice a week for $80 a session, what have you. Like it just feels so salesy and transactional
Mhm.
in our healthcare system in general. It's
Yes.
really nice to find humans that actually care about you. And
Yeah.
if you ever come out of like a surgery or whatever, like training and just kind of like feeling optimal is one thing. But if you ever come off like a major surgery, I tore my ACL in 2001, and there's still things residuals I'm dealing with around that, that like taking care of your body for the long term is huge. And if you're just like a product in the medical game, it sucks. Like you can't get back
Mhm.
to getting healthy. So you really need good humans like Lynn in your corner guiding that recovery process because you just don't know everything. Like as you said, doctors don't even know some of these things.
Mhm.
So it's tough to navigate. And I like that you just said, it's very Western minded. And I've loved this, how, these Eastern approaches have come into the mainstream because there
Mhm.
is such a balance to it as far as nutrition, like turmeric and all these things alongside, the different modalities and healing techniques that have come, that aren't in our like traditional Western system. Have you seen, and I think our young people are phenomenal about embracing these new ways. Have your clients gotten younger and younger over the years?
That's the interesting thing. Not really. I kind of
Okay,
see such a wide demographic that I kind of see a little bit of everything.
good.
Um, but so that's good to see. I think I actually see I kind of feel like I'm growing with my clientele. So that I wouldn't, I had not necessarily.
Okay.
But I think the cool part is that people that are feeling very stuck with the Western diagnoses they've gotten, or they go to their doctor and they doctors wants to give them pain pills or
Yeah.
muscle relaxers or tell them they've got something going on, but not describe, not explain to them what is actually going on. Because you can be told that you've got bicep tendonitis, but you're like, now what? And they're like,
Yeah.
well, go to this PT. They're going to give you these same 5 exercises they'll give to everybody and then send you on your way after 6 sessions, but they're not actually educating you on like the mechanics about what's going on or like how you can adjust your everyday life or just like tell you what's happening in your body. So I think that's the coolest part, is that there's people that are seeking education and want the help, which I think is huge.
That's music to my ears because I mean, graceful disruption. That's why we're here because we need to. There are so many better ways to do things. We're just not conditioned to
Hmm.
question a better way. You go to the doctor, they give you a prescription, whatever, and it's like, okay, but like now you see the opiate crisis, and like you see all these other
Hmm.
residuals. Where I do think our younger people, but also people our age, are kind of questioning a better way and shaking up what they've always believed, which I think is even harder than learning new as a child.
Totally.
Um, but it's also, I think, a cost conversation, like, because you don't really have money when you're younger. And some of
Yeah.
these things, while it's expensive, quotes up front, it can save you so much down the road. And I think people
Mhm.
are starting to understand that too. But just like cross, it's expensive. Like you can't do some of these things until you're a little bit older and you have budget to do so.
Yeah, and that's the hardest part about it, because I can understand that struggle of not feeling like you have the money to prioritize your health, or
Yeah.
you have to pick groceries over getting a stretch. Like I totally get that, and that's why I think it's huge to give people more tools um and things that they can do on their own. Like you can come in and see me once a month, and then I can give you things to help maintain over that time, so you don't have to come in as often. Because I think it's also very common to feel like you're getting, like you said, salesy and transactional. Of
Mhm.
like the only way you're going to get better is coming in, and that's
Right.
just not the truth. Like we're all capable of taking care of ourselves. We just need to have a little bit more support to do so.
Totally. And I think I mean, if you have the luxury to come once a week, which is a lot, that's amazing. But it's
Mhm.
really great to have somebody even to check in once a month and see like, oh, here's how my
Mhm.
body's recovering, and have other eyes on you to say like, this is great, but like, let's dial in this, or like, are you stressed out this month, or are you not eating
Yeah.
well? Or, it's great to have that pair of eyes. And I know you guys kind of turn into therapists a little bit because you also hear all of our shit. So
Yes, 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 yes. People
it's
say a lot on the table when that door closes,
I
so
believe it. Well, you get kind of relaxed, and most of the time I was so tired I'd fall asleep. But or I talk business because I love talking about that. That's how Andrea and I initially started. We were like stretching, and she's like, "What do you do?" Like, okay, cool, come do this for us. And I was like, "Cool." But yeah, you do kind of reveal your entire life, um,
Yes, yes.
to you guys. Have you gotten a little bit better about being a therapist now?
I think the thing that I've learned the most is just to create space.
Yeah,
Like people, a lot of times people just wanna just feel like
yeah.
they have somewhere where they can just talk it out, and it's like, I'm really just kind of like a sounding board, and people kinda come to the realizations themselves. And I think and I was actually just learned listening to a podcast the other day about, like, how there's this thing called the advice trap where people start talking and you initially want to be like, oh, how can I help? This is how I can help. This is what you should do, blah, 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 blah. But that's how people want. Like people are capable of doing what they need and they know what they need, but they just sometimes need to talk it out a little bit. So I really just sit back and people just will unload.
I love it. You can write down like stock tips or anything. If some some value comes out, you got it. Yeah. I was on a plane once and this, there was a family, it was a really cute couple. They were probably like 50, 60-ish. And I think the son was there, like one of their kids. And then one kid was calling them and they missed their flight or something. And the wife was like, oh, da, da, da. And the husband's like, I think that Junior, the kid on the phone, was like that they just needed support. They didn't need a solution. Mm-hmm. And just like you said, I think most of the time we just want to like talk and go through it versus like, I know how the answer is like, but I'm just going to unload on you.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's something that it feels nice to feel validated in what you're feeling and just to be able to, like I said, just say it out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the entrepreneurial journey because as a female, I'm obviously on Turmeric and Tequila. We talk about diversity and inclusion. And my passion piece around that was being the only female of 3 younger brothers of 4 kids. Mm-hmm. And I constantly had to kind of use my voice or stand out. And then in a male dominated business industry, it has changed. I will even say over the past 4 years, but for the most part, I'm usually the only woman in the room. And that's shifted, that's guided a lot of my life around that. Like I actually avoid like dating apps and things because like I run into these business humans and when I'm already in that female space, and this could be a lot of my story as well, but it's just, it's hard. And it's still to this day tough to navigate, being like a woman in the game, as a female entrepreneur. Are these some of the challenges you faced, or have you felt like you've been embraced as a whole?
I think a little bit of both. I think I have been very fortunate to have grown up with a lot of female role models. Like I said, my mom was a single mom, which I think I don't think I realized how unique and badass that was until the last like 4 or 5 years where it's really kind of stood out of it being like a male dominated world. I'm also a lesbian woman, so I'm also surrounded by a lot of women in general and who are all pretty badass entrepreneurs. So I think
it's a lot of strong females, I will say.
It is.
Because the rugby,
it's a whole female.
Yeah, it's a whole vibe. I was lacrosse and like the only ones that partied harder than us was the rugby team.
That's very true. That's very true. But yeah, I think I'm in a pretty unique bubble where I think I just have a lot of strong female energy around me. And so it's something that I don't feel like I personally have broken the mold for because that has already been broken for me. That glass ceiling has been shattered long before I came around. So I think I was like, I was I'm very grateful for the way I was raised. Like, again, I ran into Casey McNeil and Andrea Beaver really early, and those are obviously really strong, independent, entrepreneurial women.
Yeah.
And then I've learned actually that acupuncture is a very female dominated industry.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either, but I showed up to school and there's maybe 3 males in the entire program.
Wow.
Granted, there's only like 50 of us, but still it's a pretty great ratio. And we're talking about it because a lot of my professors are male, which I thought was also interesting. But he was like, yeah, this is a very female dominated industry, which I'm like, I love that.
Had no idea.
So I think it's something that for me, it's kind of been like, oh no, duh, female women can be strong and independent and run their own businesses. I think I have a very unique situation where that's all I've really known.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's of course what I'm going to do. But but there are obviously situations where I am the only female in the room. And I'm also often there are not many LGBTQ like advocates there in the industry as well. But I think you always walk into a room and if there's a man there, people are always going to be looking to them. But I have never had a problem with speaking up and having a strong voice. So that's what put me into the rowing team. That's what put me on the rugby team. So it's like, I think it was a perfect storm of get out of my way. I'm here to do what I want to do.
Lynn is like this mini tornado, but it's the truth. I mean, you have an energy and a presence and like, you can like handle your business, like in all capacities. I had that's fascinating that, acupuncture is female dominated because I was just, as you're saying that, I'm trying to think everybody I've gotten acupuncture from in my life, which is a good chunk of people. I would say 90% of them were men.
Was it dry needling or was it acupuncture?
Dry needling. So you're right. Okay.
Yeah. So dry needling is an offshoot of acupuncture. So physical therapists and chiropractors and people who have a doctorate can get certified in dry needling.
Okay.
So so it's a little bit different than acupuncture itself. So the more like whole body approach is more acupuncture, and dry needling is like a very small offshoot of acupuncture. So there you go.
I,
That's probably it.
thank you for explaining that. I've done this now for, I don't know what, 10 years. And I know the difference, but then it's even slipped my mind. But that's the perfect example of like, even when you're in it, some of this stuff is so hard to know and keep track of because there's so much to know. And you really just have to have good people that you trust to be like, we're going to do acupuncture, but I actually want to dry needle first. And then we'll get to the whole thing or like whatever. And you just you can't know everything. It's really hard.
Yes. And I think I've kind of struggled with that. But I think my desire of wanting to know everything is what's driven me to get all the certifications I have. Because I always feel like I'm missing something. There's always more. There's always something else I can add and something that hasn't been considered yet. And like, it's a little bit stressful and exhausting, but it's also really nice because I feel like I'm just constantly seeking and striving for more education. I feel like I'm just always learning, which I love that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope that passion never goes away. I think when you love something and you're in alignment and you bleed it, like you do this for fun. Like I literally love this. Like podcast is yet to make money, which we want this as passion piece, but clear in the universe, like this is what we want to be doing. But I mean, I do it for free. Like this is amazing. So when you're in it and you love it, like it's just there. It's not work. Although I think sometimes like you do get exhausted. There's logistics around everything that do wear you out. Is there anything you learned as an entrepreneur that's kind of been like, oh, this is the business side?
Oh gosh, taxes are really hard.
Yes.
That's the first thing. I do remember like when Matt first approached me about it and I was like, I guess I can do this. And then like the next day I was like, wait, I don't know anything. What am I? And I was grateful that it's very common in the this wellness industry where people kind of go off on their own and do their own thing. So I had a lot of really awesome people that I could reach out to and be like, what do you think I should, like, what things do I need to do? Like Andrea was big in that. Derek McBride, who also graduated from SWAC, which is where I'm at, was a big help in that. And Missy Albrecht, she does Invincible. So I think I had a lot of really awesome people in the community that I was like, help, what do I do? So I think that's the biggest thing. I also was like, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's been stigmatized for too long. And there are so many people that are willing to help because especially in this industry, like we want people to thrive and it's really a community where you're going to find the most success. And I was very grateful that I had a lot of support from a lot of people that I could reach out to.
I think that's invaluable advice. If you're an entrepreneur listening and you're thinking like, what is step one? I think go ask somebody that's already doing it that will help you, particularly in the wellness industry, because we're here to help people anyways. So like whether it's on the table stretching or in the business room, like lend a hand. And I have had extraordinary humans step up or, put in a call for me or whatever. So anytime somebody asks me, I always want to return the favor, and that reciprocal process, it shows up. And it just makes such a huge difference. And all the OGs that you just mentioned, it's so funny that we all kind of cross passing at the same time. And like everybody's still doing their zone and everyone's still kind of like in the community. It's pretty cool to see.
Yes. And the best part about that is you're going to get the real world information that you need. Like you can go read a book and you can be like, you need to do this, this, and this, but they're not going to tell you the things that randomly pop up when you wake up at 2 a.m. and like, oh, I need to go do this. So it's nice to fill in the blanks of the stuff that you would never even think about doing. So the community was huge.
Do you guys stay in touch at all? I've actually got to catch up. Matt, there's so many people with COVID, I think everybody just kind of went into like their dark hole. But do you do like a once a month meeting or like keep in touch or keep up on Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm actually not great at keeping in touch with people. It's something that I have a friend that's really good at it, and it's very admirable, and it's something that I'm like, oh, I'm going to do that, and of course I never do. So I'm working on it, but I actually talked to Derek quite a bit. He was kind of a main driving force in encouraging me to go to acupuncture school, and he was like, I can go like he can be my mentor basically, and I can go watch and do what he does and ask questions and get some experience and stuff. So he's actually been a really awesome resource. So I talk to him every now and again. But really, I think it's just like Instagram is really a blessing and a curse these days, but it's really nice to be able to keep in touch with people. So yeah, I would say I'm not great at it, but when I need to reach out or when I do reach out, they're always there, and that's always great, which I love.
I think you just pointed out a really important piece, like the turmeric and tequila of Instagram. Social media is such an amazing tool for small business. It allows space for us to be relevant and compete with some of these major companies that have huge budgets to market. And it provides a level of transparency that has never been, available ever. So our consumers, our kiddos, can be more conscious consumers as they grow up, because they can see who's behind the business, what's going on, how you started, the podcast about it, like you can get into the details. The devil side is it can be like a slippery slope where you're just comparing and you're seeing there's too much information. But I try and keep my attitude around social media, particularly as an entrepreneur, positive, because it's such an amazing cost and time effective outlet to market and share your story, especially if you've got an amazing one. Like you didn't get into this business because you're like, oh, there's great margins and I can monetize my time. And that you got in because of pure passion. Your entire life journey like led you to this point. Like everything happened. And I think the more people can see that, the more like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to go see Lynn. Like perfect. Like that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah, social media is definitely an interesting and tough subject, I think, because like you're right. It's good for small businesses in the sense that you can do it for free. It's hard because you have to do it for free. It's a time suck. It's hard. There's all these tips I don't really know about, and I'm kind of, I go through phases where I'm like, oh, this is great. Like I can really push this, and sometimes I'm just like, I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about today. So it's been a battle that I've kind of stepped away from, which is kind of nice. And I kind of will post when I feel like I need to. I've been very fortunate. My girlfriend is starting her own photography business.
Oh,
and so
yes.
I've been able to get some good photos. So if you need photos at all, let me know. She'll hook it up. I've also kind of been joining her with some video stuff. So we're kind of doing like a tag team of photo and video, which has been a fun journey that we kind of fell into during quarantine because we had the time to do some research and do some stuff. So if you need photo and video, let us know. We'll hook it up.
2 weeks ago, I think I posted for a photographer and somebody came through. She was phenomenal. But I always need like a roster because people always ask me for a photographer. I'm leaning into YouTube and video because like you, my pro tip for anyone's listening, they will always say, they meaning like people that advise on social media, like post every day, put more content. My thing is, my advice as a consultant is not that. Like, yes, you need, the algorithm and like there's certain games to play, but my thing is, if your energy around it is this feels like a chore, stop it, take a break, take a breath, because again, the consumer will know and feel it, and when it feels inauthentic and it feels like business, it's just like super selling the package of 10 stretches versus when you only need to like just breathe and let it be. So if you're feeling this pressure around social, stop.
Just don't do it.
You're not missing.
They'll be there.
Yeah, and the energy
industry's
around
already
it,
saturated.
Exactly. And then when you feel like you're excited about it, you'll see the engagement happen. Like and it sounds so wishy-washy because everyone wants to see like ROI and likes and all this. Some things you can't measure, but I promise you it's the truth. Just breathe and don't do it.
When you have fun with it, like it gets fun. Like I also run the social media for our rugby team. And around quarantine, it's something that's also, I've run into the same thing of like, this is a chore and you can feel like it. But like when quarantine first hit, we had some fun with it, and we had some really, really awesome engaging posts, and it was engaging and fun. And like, we had fun making it, and you could tell that it was being received really well. So it is something that you for sure have to feel it, because if you don't, like, people feel it.
Right. But people just like, well, just set it up on Hootsuite and set it out for the month and blah, blah. And I'm like, some businesses, like you just have to do that way. And like, okay. But 99% of my clients, I advise against all of that. I'm like, stay hands-on, stay connected. And like, as you're feeling what you're putting out there, that's your radar. Like that's your clear indication. It sounds so like, woo or witchery or whatever, but it's the truth. And it takes like about a month for them to see it, but it's real.
Energy is real. That's literally what acupuncture is you're working and balancing energy. And if it's something that people say is not, then they just haven't found it yet or tapped into it quite yet. But it's there, it's everywhere.
I think I'm on day 143, I think, of my morning routine. Cause again, the adulting is happening slow in my world. I'm a Libra. So the two can together balances, like we're so good at something, but then we're just like a late bloomer on some other things. I also hate the morning. Like I'm a night owl, but waking up intentional, law of attraction, but like being intentional, what I want with my life, how I'm facing the day, whatever. That's not to say we have some late nights and parties. Like it's not all balanced out, but that
is balance though.
It is. You got to have some fun in there. But again, I think our young humans are questioning this like energy, and whether it's religion or I always say God, universe, or Madonna, whatever you believe, like you start to like lean into that and understand that, oh, everything's connected. Like that's, would you consider yourself a spiritual person or religious? Or?
I think I'm becoming more spiritual. I think for a very long time I was very scientific and very logical, and like it was pretty black and white. And I think my journey of just like finding myself and this medicine, and I think Becky's been a huge part of it, of just like opening up your mind to like, you got to kind of honor what you're feeling because it's there for a reason. And I think that there is energy out there that if you just kind of sit back for a second, it's there. So I'm definitely becoming more spiritual for sure.
Did you grow up religious? Like, was that within your
No.
family? No, mine either.
No, my mom was not religious at all. She married a guy for a couple of years that was like heavily Catholic, and
okay.
that was something, that was a choice. It was, we went to Catholic school for about 3 or 4 years, and it was it kind of confirmed that wasn't the path for me, and it's not something that I'm not saying it's the wrong choice, it just wasn't the choice for me. And it really just like highlighted how much I like the freedom to choose my path and my journey.
Yeah. I think the good thing about experiences like that, you can see like how good you have it. Like my parents were like pretty unstructured and things. And I was like, why do we do this? Why do we do that? But as I've gotten older, I'm like, thank God I had just the freedom to do whatever I wanted. I was running around like oh, you're going to play women's lacrosse 2,000 miles away and you're going to make money off this. Like, why are we paying for this? And you're turning down scholars. Like, thank God they just trusted what I was doing. But when you have experiences like that, I think you can be like, oh, like, universe, God, Madonna, someone's looking out, like the path is at play. And I'm so glad I got to see this so I could appreciate how good I have it.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of it is perspective too, of like, people are always like, oh, well, you're lucky that this happened, or you're lucky that happened. But someone could look at the exact same situation and see a negative side of it, or see just something completely different. So I think being able to step back and like see the perspective in things and is really big.
Yeah. Well, when you're working with humans, I mean, you're like grown up Lynn. I don't want to sound like a mom, but I'm like, oh yes, I'm so proud of her. Like, because we've grown up over the past 5 years.
Yes.
And I don't think we're even that close in age, but I mean, everybody that kind of, I feel like the culmination when like all the people you just listed, we crossed paths. Like, I think everybody was starting to like grow up and do their own thing at that point, regardless of where we're at, like literally in age. But it's cool to see how, if you're in, because a lot of doctors and like wellness humans are like science-based, because that's where the passion starts and that's what your work is and your modalities and everything. But it's been really cool to see like the mind transfer and evolve from that, because you do start to learn, even if you're very scientific. I have many doctor friends that are still not about spirituality, whatever. And I'm like, you don't think it makes sense around energy, but you see this slow transition of like how it's all connected and how you can know the science, but the heart and the mind are leading so much. Like it's remarkable.
It drives everything. And again, I keep bringing up acupuncture, but it's because I'm in the middle of it. But in Chinese medicine, they call the spirit your Shen. And in Chinese medicine, Shen precedes Chi's energy, and Chi precedes form. So like form and physical and whatever we're feeling and seeing and happening is a result of energy, which is a result of the spirit. So it's like in Chinese medicine, even it's like, it is like the pinnacle of everything, and it's what drives everything. And I think it's really hard to not believe that emotions don't drive things, and you don't hold it and you don't perceive it and manifest it in different ways. I think it's 100% in everybody. It's just about how much you want to recognize that's what's driving it.
Yeah. That intuition has been something I've really learned to. I've always kind of been spiritual in some capacity, or just believe in something bigger and like trusting your gut. Like anytime, any business decision where I've been like, I don't know about this, has always been right. And I've certainly had to learn the hard way a few times of like, girl, bye, you knew this from the get-go. This was a trash situation and now we're in it, so we're going to fix it. But like, we knew. And leaning into that intuition, it's hard. But as you get older, you're like, oh, nope, we know this. We've run this lap and we're going to back away. Have you had some of those experiences as an entrepreneur thus far where you're like, this doesn't feel right?
Yes, I think so. I can't, it's hard because it's like, and I was actually talking to someone the other day about like these pivotal moments in your life of like, you were going to do something, but for some reason you went a different course. And I think even just, and kind of on the flip side of that, just kind of starting this thing, I was like, I shouldn't do this. This is not a smart decision. Like, I know nothing. I've got no backing on this. I don't have enough money to support myself, but I was like, I'm going to do it. And so I think it's kind of the flip side of that, of like, everything kind of on paper said no, but my gut was like, just go for it. And here I am. So I think it kind of goes both ways of, because you just really do have to trust yourself, because you really do know, you already, like we said, you know what you're capable of, you know what you can do, you know what you have, you just have to decide if you want to listen to it or not.
Yeah. Well, and your ego always wants to keep you safe. So it's like
Yeah.
that downplay. And this isn't it's a couple good like law of attraction books that I've read. And once you like unpack it, things make sense. And you understand when it's like your intuition's like, this probably isn't like, cause not everybody's an ideal client. You learn when to walk away. And it's like, even though they're paying you money, once you get to a point, you're like, this isn't going to be mutually beneficial. And like, it's not going to be a fit. So you can feel that intuition versus like, I'm just unsure or I'm scared. Like
totally.
there's different gauges. But I think that awareness of really pulling it back and being like, but this still feels like it's within alignment. Like I still want to do this. And that's usually enough.
Yeah. And I think a huge part of it is identifying what emotion you're feeling. Because I think the big ones are stress and anxiety. And you're like, well, is this really stress and anxiety, or is this fear, or is this like what am I really feeling? And then I'm just trying to mask it as just generalized anxiety. So I think that's also a huge part of it, of like really tapping into yourself and being like, what is actually at the root of this uneasy feeling?
Yeah.
I think that helps a lot too.
Absolutely. Does this come up in some of your sessions? Because it's so physical, but I could see people coming in and being like, well, here's what it is. And you're like, well, time out. This is probably more around fear and anxiety versus like your leg is sore or whatever. Like, does that start to cross over into the physical appointment?
Totally. And that's how people just start to unload. You'll start to be talking about things, and then someone will just say something and be like, well, let's go into that a little bit more. Like, what is this? And I think also people just store emotions. I think I've had some interesting situations where you release something and then the floodgates open. And like I was working on a gentleman one time, and he had a lot of shoulder pain and it's been going on for like 6 months and nothing's really been helping it. And we released something and he just started crying.
Yeah.
And he was like, I am so sorry. I'm like, no, I don't need to apologize. Like, let it out. And he goes, my mom died about 6 months ago, and I don't think I've really been dealing with it. So it's like those kinds of things happen too, of like, you just have to choose to decide that you're ready, or decide that you can start to work through those emotions, because sometimes you're just not ready, and your body will hold it until you are.
Well, you don't really know how to deal with that. I've been on a massage table, I think it was like 2 years ago, or maybe a little bit longer. But like, again, in health and wellness, have been to recovery centers and stretch, like have done it all at this point. And I understood energy-ish, but I was going into like, I think it was a massage. I can't even remember if it was like, it wasn't Reiki, but anyway, it was a massage. And I think she was like releasing my shoulders or something. And she's like, I don't know if I started to tear up or what, but she's like, you feel like you've been left behind. I can't even remember what was going on. It's probably something around the gym or whatever, because our whole life was working out. But, and I just started tearing up, and I was like, oh my God. And that's when I started to learn like, oh, it is about stored emotion. I'm like, why did I not learn this in high school? Like, of course this makes sense. So to give a nod to you again, like when you have practitioners that can understand this whole other side, which you're not even being paid for, this is just like an added bonus of knowing how to be like, oh, I'm embarrassed you're crying. It's like, no, this is normal. And walking through, like, that's why practitioners like you are so important, because you don't know what's going to happen, and you have to bring all these skill sets to the table, because you're really dealing with a human in a very vulnerable space. And it's hard to navigate that correctly without training and open-mindedness. Like it's really brutal. Do you think that's really helped you evolve as a practitioner?
Oh yeah, for
Just dealing
sure.
with people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a huge part of like being a precursor going into this industry, is you have to be able to talk to people. I think that's something that's come easy for me, of just like the very baseline of just like interacting with humans, and just like chatting with them, because that's the first part about it, is you have to build the rapport, and you have to let them feel comfortable in the space, because it is a very vulnerable thing. It's very vulnerable to let someone put their hands on you and feel what's going on and tell them your ailments, and that's a very vulnerable situation in and of itself. And we talk a lot about making sure that it's as close to an equitable relationship between practitioner and patient, because you initially come in as when we are the expert, and that's why you're seeking us out. But I think the best practitioners will still have advice and obviously share their knowledge, which is why you're there, but it doesn't make it feel like it's something that they're better than you, or that it's a safe place, that you guys are an equal footing and you can share what you need.
Yeah. And that's so beautifully said, because I think like culturally in America, you go and you're like, doctors have all the answers, this and that. And it's not that they don't, but so many times I've walked out being like, dude, I'm not going to do that rehab. Something doesn't feel right. And I think that's why initially we started going to DSR, was because I was like, this, like, I'm not doing more medication for any, I'm not like, there has to be a better way around all these other things. And it's not that they didn't know, but sometimes if you're like an OBGYN or you're just working on, pediatrics, your focus is so narrow, and you need humans that are like seeing a lot of people and they're in the mix of, I love new grads because they're fresh off the table or out of the school and they know all the books, but they haven't really been around people yet, but they know the most trend setting way of what's being taught in school versus a doctor that's been in it for 40 years.
Yes.
So there's experience, but then there's like also just staying connected to like the ground level. So you know what's next. And
I also think the huge part of it is listening to the patients. Like I
Yeah.
can't think of how many times people have said, and I've experienced it myself, going to the doctor and saying, this doesn't feel right. This is something's happening. And the doctor's being like, no, you're fine.
Right.
Or don't. Like I remember going in after my knee surgery and being like, my knee does not feel right. There's something going on. And I literally had the PA tell me, no, you're wrong. You're fine. And I burst into tears. I was like, not being heard is so huge in the Western medical world. And just having someone be like, I understand, I hear you, we're going to work and see what's going on. Because if you don't feel like something's right, something's probably not right.
Yeah.
So we'll search for it and we'll figure out what's happening, rather than just saying, no, it's not. And my knee actually was wrong. There was something wrong with my knee. So it was, that's a lesson right there of like, the patients know, they just need to be heard and want to do something about it.
Well, you don't know, but again, it's kind of back to that intuition. Like, something's not right. And obviously you're not a doctor and you're not qualified the way they are, the way you are, but nobody knows your body like you. And that's where that conscious consumer conversation kicks back in. And I actually hear this a lot with my friends, particularly women of color, where they go in and they're pregnant or whatever, and they're saying this is going on. And it's whatever the ailments are, they're ignored and they're not heard. And it's, I don't know if it's predominantly a white situation or whatever, but this happens all the time. And these are really serious scenarios. So I think that's, again, like having people like you, open-minded representation on several levels, and setting the bar, like you are further breaking those glass ceilings, but more importantly, you can connect with people and streamline the recovery process and actually get them better.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the thing that I don't think is highlighted enough, is it's about getting them better.
Yeah.
Like it's not about the money. It's not about the number of patients. It's not about any of that. It's about getting people back to the things that they love and feeling good doing them, because at the end of the day, we all need that just to survive the craziness that's going on in this country and
Totally.
world. So
yeah, there's so much, but the personal wealth and or personal health, which your health is your wealth, is such a big deal, because if you can get your body and your mind right, I think everything else, like the ripple effect of everything else in your universe, will be positively impacted. So
absolutely,
it's worth it for all the self-care and everything else that you really should be doing.
Yeah, the ripple effect is the biggest thing. Is like, that's why people always say, when I start working out, I start eating better, I start sleeping better, I drink more water. It's like, when you start to put a conscious effort into wellness, it will continue. You'll find it everywhere.
Are you good about self-care?
Heck no. None of us are.
Every entrepreneur is the worst. And we're like in the business. Like I said, we're on day 143 of my morning routine, so we're good now. But it's hard. And especially like you're in it. I think probably the last thing you want to do is like do anything that is your business.
Yes. I will say I'm getting better, as school has really been quite demanding. I've been better at like stepping away and just like taking time doing nothing. I think that's huge. Of like, sometimes, because like wellness is a lot of eating well and stretching and moving and all that stuff, but it's also like just kind of sitting back and like decreasing your stimulus and just kind of being with yourself and just like being okay doing nothing for a little bit, I think is a huge part. So I do a good job. I'm doing a better job of that, but I also just will throw myself into rugby after not playing for 6 months and pull my groin. But
don't do that.
I don't recommend that. But I do some stuff for my self-care, but I obviously could be better.
Well, I think we all can be. And it's so fun. It's just like you see the doctors and then they go and eat like Cheetos and it's like, well, aren't you in the health field? Like we're all still human at the end of the day. And you guys have to show up and carry the weight of all your patients. So like all, all their emotional, all their physical. So then by the time you get done to your shit, it's like, I'm tired.
Yeah, I would say my self-care is just not doing what I do. So like I've recently got into woodworking, and that's been kind of my release of just kind of like, I'm going to step back, and then this is good for my mental health. And I'm also like attempting to make things. So
are you going to make like your own massage table or something like that?
I actually thought about it. I was looking at it the other day and I was like, I think I could probably do this.
That's awesome.
So
You could do like a whole,
TBD.
yeah, you could do like a whole custom like line. I love seeing how people's world, I actually just started designing these jean jackets for Turmeric and Tequila that I'm really excited about.
Oh,
They're going to be like Black Lives Matter jackets and they're coming out. They're awesome. But I love seeing how like passions and like how complicated and beautiful humans are. Cause like our passions can coexist when it's two things like Turmeric and Tequila that don't fit. And all of a sudden it collides and you're building like a custom word working massage where it's like woodwork and I do,
yes.
medical therapies and now we're going to blend them.
Yes. Yeah, I did make a cabinet for all of Becky's camera stuff. So
Oh, okay. That's
there we
huge.
go. Yeah. So I've been bopping around with some of the wood and stuff, but it is really cool to see. I think it is something that I definitely would love to have a custom piece of something in my office at some point. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say this unsolicited, I'm not a licensed therapist at all, but a creative outlet will save your life. What painting,
for sure.
Whatever it is, photography, podcasting, like it will, every human I think has some creative angle. Cooking, it can change your brain set and really put you in better space.
I 100% agree. I'm also not a therapist, but I agree.
I mean, I think you're pretty close. So I can print you out a certificate that's like, Lynn can deal with your shit. What's up?
Certified by Turmeric and Tequila. It's real.
Yeah, which don't trust that at all. I love it. Well, it's been amazing to catch up. I can go on with you, but Lynn, tell us where we find you, your business, anything else you want to share.
Yes, you can find my website, synergistic-movement.com. I'm on Instagram, Synergistic Movement. My office is kind of in North Denver, a little bit a ways from the Grizzly Rose, if you know where that is.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like about a mile east of that. So yeah, hit me up if we can take care of your body and your mind, I guess, too.
I love it. Well, I've just started this thing on Turmeric and Tequila. We ask everybody's chill and their thrill. So like your turmeric and your tequila. So what's like your chill and then what's your thrill?
My chill's definitely my woodworking these days, for sure. And I guess, let's see, what is my thrill? Oh, it's a great question.
Are you looking around for tequila right now?
Yes, I am. We're gonna take a shot. I think rugby really is my thrill because it's really hard but it's also like you said, rugby likes to party. So
yeah,
I'd say that's my thrill.
Yeah, you guys are like your own community. It's really actually cool. It reminds me of like my college days.
Insane. It's so cool. You will. I guarantee you meet one person, you can connect them back to the rugby community.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, it's been amazing. Let's definitely catch up again soon. I wish you so much luck with the business, and I'll definitely have to come. My elbow's been killing me, so I got to come see probably all of you guys. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, hit us all up. We'll take care of you.
I love it. Well, I appreciate the time and energy. Like I said, we'll wrap soon.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.